Ciao guys, welcome to another episode of the Personal PR Show. And today we are here with our resident guest, Portia the producer. Hello, Portia, how are you?
Hey, Jessica, it's awesome to be here as always. I mean, I'm super grateful. I always write that in my journal. Every morning I start my day with gratitude. Like, even though I had a rough night, I didn't sleep too well, I even wrote that in my gratitude journal. I am grateful for my sleepless nights because it's a reminder to me to start taking care of myself. So I know we're going to have a jam-packed conversation today. So I'm really, really excited. So thank you again for having me back on.
Well, thank you so much for coming back on the Personal PR Show. And guys, I have to tell you, the announcement, as you were probably already you have already been able to gather, is that from today, Portia is actually going to be our resident guest on a Personal PR Show. She's going to come and grace us with her presence and knowledge every single month of the year. Is incredible. We'll get to that in a second, but I just wanted to give it to you straight away because this is super exciting. By the way, Portia, did you see that we have another guest today? Actually, we have a member of the audience here on Zoom with us today, and this lovely member of the audience is Marie-Louise. Marie-Louise, you are still in the spotlight with us, and would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay. So my name is Marie-Louise, and I've known Jessica for a while now through a mutual acquaintance of ours, a high-performance coach. And I was really looking forward to meeting you, Portia, because your story is inspiring. And it's probably what I'd like to do as well, because I'm a language teacher. But I got into coaching because I've overcome 25 years of eating disorders. And I'm still struggling with a few health issues, but most of all, I'm struggling with the feeling of being stuck after realizing that most of my life so far was just spent in survival mode. And so now I'm trying, spurred on by my coach, to do something with my story and turn it into something useful for myself and for other people as well. So I'm really looking forward to what you have to say about this and your wisdom. Yeah.
Oh my God, Marie-Louise, Portia, as you already know, is really your girl today. You're going to learn so much from her and how she was able to leverage her story in order to help other people as well. So this is beautiful. This is really a wonderful container with the three of us and also with people who are following us from on Facebook as well and on other platforms too. So Marie-Louise, I'm going to remove you from the spotlight just for the next few minutes while Portia and I introduce the topic of storytelling, and then I'm going to bring you back on stage when you ask a question, right, later on. Right? Awesome. Perfect. So people are not going to be able to see you in the recording or on Facebook, but we are able to see you, Portia and I. Okay, cool. Portia, so today, as Marie said, we're going to talk about storytelling and storytelling in general, of course, but storytelling also when it comes to you and how you have been able to really leverage your story in order to help yourself and help other people as well, right? Yes, Portia is known as Portia the Producer. And to me, actually, Portia is known also as Portia the Storyteller, because I mean, when I think of Portia, I think of storytelling. It's like one-to-one. Right. Yeah, Portia, how did you get started on this journey with storytelling?
Jessica, first, I want to definitely give a round of applause to our guest, Marie-Louise. Your story, I can resonate with you being at that obstacle. Now you're ready to take that obstacle and convert it to an opportunity. So I think this is a pivotal point for me to read the quote, Jessica, that we had talked about that was from a good friend of mine that she posted earlier this week on LinkedIn. The quote says, sometimes you have to lose something precious in order to gain something priceless. I'm going to say it again. Sometimes you have to lose something precious in order to gain something priceless. And I can relate to your story, Marie-Louise, because for me, it took me losing my dream career job. I was a television producer, had my dream life, everything. Like if Instagram had highlight reels back in 2016, mine would have had over 1 million views, hands down, because literally, I moved to a brand new state, brand new city, all of that, landed the dream job, the things you see in movies. The place flew me out there, did an in-person interview, paid for me to stay in this 5-star hotel where you jump into the bed and you sink all the way to the mattress. Like literally, I'm telling you, I had it all. And of course, everything crumpled just like that. And so it takes something like that. It takes the catalyst for us to find the courage. And so when it comes to us sharing our story, I call it the VIP method of sharing your story. Number one, vulnerability. I am very open and transparent about my journey, about my mental wellness journey. I mean, I'm a suicide survivor two times a charm, but, you know, and I've also have been still on this journey of deep learning. I'm always trying to better myself. I ask myself even the tough questions. If I'm feeling a little off, or if I notice my ego kind of takes the Mike Tyson approach in certain situations, if you catch my drift, I have to even ask myself, hey, Portia, what did you fail at in this situation? How can you make this situation better? So number one, vulnerability is key in storytelling. Vulnerability, and I know that Jessica, and you can probably agree here, that in our society, vulnerability is looked at as a weakness, when for me, vulnerability has been my greatest strength. I mean, for example, 2 months ago, I released on my Facebook page that I was going to start doing podcast classes again. And I had took a hiatus from it for about a year. But I shared with people how me teaching podcast classes has always been a dream of mine. And I even sent out an email blast, an organic email blast that talked about how podcasting was my second chance at life. After I left my TV career and everything, I couldn't write. I couldn't do anything creative for about 2 or 3 years. Literally, my creative juice was like a well that had dried up. Literally dried up, not an ounce of water, not a drop, dip, nada, nothing. And so when I discovered podcasting, well, let me back up a minute. My show is radio first, podcast second. Grew with Portia has always been radio first, podcast second. When somebody heard me as a guest on another show on the same radio station, shout out to WOVU here in Cleveland, Ohio, I was given the opportunity to reclaim my voice, number one. Number two, to continue my passion for storytelling, because I've always loved to connect with people and learn, how did you get from this space of obstacle to opportunity? I mean, I've said it to you, Jessica, before. The worst part of you is the best part of you. I'm going to say it again. The worst part of you is the best part of you. And Mary Louise, you being so vulnerable and transparent about your current journey, right? That's the starting point right there. You've owned that this mess of your life is your message. And now it's time for you to take the baton and run with it. So vulnerability is key. And also, I got to add into the vulnerability part, there's going to be some pushback. There's going to be some people that are going to say, I don't think your story's all the way true. Well, let me tell you something. You can't tell me how my story is because you're not seeing it from my eyes, right? The word vision has 2 eyes for a reason, right? Because the vision was given to you as a solo person. So I love to really share that with people and put that in perspective, because I think a lot of times we forfeit and get stuck in what we're trying to do because nobody else can see the same vision that we were given. But that's the beauty of it. The vision was only given to you, and now it's up to you to take that vision and convert it into something concrete, as known as vision to fruition method. Number 2 thing in storytelling is impact. What kind of impact are you trying to make in the world, right? I often share with people that because my story was not heard when I was diagnosed with, God, I've gotten 3 different diagnoses: depression, anxiety, and bipolar disorder. And, you know, I share that with people to let them know that, number 1, people are flawed. Number 2, that diagnosis was not a death sentence for me. It forced me to look deeper into what I truly believe, what I truly want to do. And so when I think back to that time, Jessica, which this is 2023, believe it or not, my mental health journey started in 2016, 2017. So I've made a complete 360 turn to where I was so gung-ho on being this big time producer for this big network. But now I've pivoted 360, and now I currently have the life of my dreams where I'm able to work with new and veteran podcasters. I currently have 4 podcasts under me. I just acquired a new podcast, spoiler alert, with a college here in Cleveland, Ohio. So more to come on that. But, you know, the impact for me, it was because my story was not heard. That was my foundation for helping more people to have their stories heard. I didn't want anybody else to have to go through the tumultuous road that I went through when my mental health journey crumbled. I mean, I was on a cocktail of medications. We've heard this whole sad, violent story, of course. You're on a cocktail of meds for however many years or months, and they tweak them, they adjust them. And I'm not going to get too much on the political aspect of medication when it comes to our society, but I can say proudly that I'm prescription drug free for the last 4 years, and it can work. It takes some work. It takes some time, but I knew for me, I wanted to make a stand. I wanted to make a stand and an impact and let people know that you don't have to follow this same prescription narrative that's often placed on our society when it comes to mental health or any type of tragedy. I mean, look at Jessica with my grief journey from my mom making her transition. For me, gratitude has been the life jacket that has kept me afloat. And it's only been 6 months since my mom made her transition. And my mom was my buddy. My mom was my rock. She was my cheerleader and everything. But the reason why I'm not upstairs laying in that bed right now, crying and boo-hooing my eyes out, gratitude. Gratitude has really kept me afloat to remind me that these are experiences that are happening through me and not to me, in order for me to help other people to see the opportunity within the obstacle that currently plagues them. So that's impact. So we got vulnerability, impact. The last thing, passion. You have to be passionate about what you're doing, because if you're not passionate, that's like you saying you want to pursue a career in singing, but the only thing you do is sit down and watch Netflix all day. No. Don't work like that. For me, my passion is storytelling. So for me, with me being the producer on the go that I am, I'm always creating things in my mind. I mean, I told you, Jessica, I have to keep a notebook, something like this, next to my bed at night, because I'm literally writing out podcast concepts, just like that. Podcast concepts, titles, what the premise is. If it's an interview style podcast, if it's a video, I'm literally writing that stuff out. And of course, it's almost to me equivalent to when you're a writer and you have all these different characters who latch on to you that want you to share their story. I mean, I've written books like that, books that I have not even published yet, that have come to me in that facet, because I'm so passionate about storytelling. It's all about me helping more people. It's all about me spreading a message. And so because my passion is storytelling, it's going to come through me in certain ways. Sometimes I want to be the photographer who does your headshots. Sometimes I want to be kind of like what you're doing with me and you, Jessica, right now, where I'm interviewing you, really hearing your story, getting to the root of why you do what you do and how you can help somebody else to get through that test in their life, right? I'm a firm believer that your story is not for you. I'm going to say it again. Your story is not for you. It is for somebody else to stop their goals, dreams, and aspirations from making the cemetery richer. Because the cemetery is the richest place in the world, if we really think about it, of all the people who forego their dreams because somebody else didn't see the vision the same way that they did. It's for people who felt as though they couldn't do it on their own. But we're resilient people. We can. And I can honestly say, for me, I'm grateful for every loss in my life because I had the return on investment. I mean, with my mom making her transition, I've shared this story, that I wrote a book 3 months after my mom's transition. And it's an audio book. It's audio only because people know me for my voice. And I wanted to keep that same level of storytelling because this is what I do. This is what I love to do, is storytell for people. And so you got to be passionate. You have to eat, sleep, and breathe what you do. And I do. I mean, I just, like I told you before we jumped on here, I just ordered myself some new equipment for going on the road and doing commercial shoots and that. So I have a softbox light kit coming. So I'm really like excited about it. I mean, who gets excited about gadgets? Me. Of course, I am like, you know how men go to Home Depot or they go to the car dealership and they're looking at cars like, oh, I like this car, I like this paint job. No, I'm the girl that's in the computer store like, oh, I need this for my camera, I need that accessory. I get super excited about gadgets. And I mean, you're talking to the girl who has over 40 cameras. So still, I'm over 40. That's what I'm telling you. Like, that is my passion for storytelling, because storytelling can come in so many different mediums. But the problem is we tend to have all these different tools, such as cameras, such as microphones, such as computers, but we often have a hard time trying to take those and craft a story. Instead, the story starts from with us being vulnerable. So I'll open it up for questions. I did a whole lecture. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Oh my God, this is amazing. Wow. Yeah, this is so clear. This was amazing because now we can really remember the framework, the IP. It's perfect, right? It's easy for us to understand, to remember, to internalize, and to spread to other people as well. We can talk about other people. Like, this is very referable, right? So other people can tell other people about your methodology because it's very clear. The IP. Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much, Portia. And when it comes to storytelling, and then I open it up to you as well, Marie-Louise, but I do have one question. When it comes to storytelling, do you have maybe, let's say, a format or a structure that you would recommend to tell our story?
So for me, Jessica, I'll be very honest with you. The way I do my storytelling on my Facebook is I do a lot of Dear Portia letters because I've been a writer since I was 13. And so I do my storytelling as a method for me to have a message that I would have wanted to see at that dark time in my life. So when I write these messages, like my mom's 70th birthday was this 2 weeks ago on January 16th. And I wrote a letter to her. I said, "Dear Mommy," and I might get emotional trying to say it, but writing that Facebook post was the hardest part of the day because for me, I miss my mom a ton, but it felt so freeing once I got the words out. And I literally said, "Dear Mommy, words are giving me the pink slip as I write this."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, the words just would not come to me, but I was very vulnerable with how I shared that. Because when you lose somebody who you love, when you lose anything, truthfully, when you lose anything that you love, whether it's a job, whether it's a pet, whether it's your family member, or even the childhood that you didn't have, that's a whole nother topic on grief. I'm not going to go too deep in that, but when you lose something that you love, it rattles your whole being where you just don't have the words. You don't. And so for me, I honor that time. I gave myself permission to be vulnerable. And of course, I wrestle with what I call my inner critic. My inner critic's name is Rump Roast, by the way. So me and Rump Roast have a love-hate relationship where Rump Roast always says, "Well, you know, nobody's going to listen to you, right? You know, nobody cares about what you have to say." And I'm like, "Shut up." Like, literally, I'm just like, "Shut up, dude." Like, or the other thing I do is I tell my brain, "Stop. Just stop. Everybody stop. We're going to start over from scratch." And that's my method, is I create content based on what I wish I could have had at that time of my life, because you never know how what you post a year later, somebody else can really resonate with it. Like, Jessica, I've been on my Facebook. I mean, we're only 1 month into 2023, barely. And some videos have resurfaced that I did last year on my Facebook, live videos. When I listen back to them, I'm like, man, I needed this message today. I needed this. And I didn't even realize at the time that me recording those videos, I would re-find them a year later and the message would resonate so heavily. So in a sense, what I want to really encourage your listeners and even Mary Louise is to create content that would be a message that you wish you would have had when you were going through a tough time. So for me, like when I was struggling mentally, where I literally was so completely detached from myself, from the world, I wish I would have seen something that said, you are not alone. Your feelings are valid. And so I write things that really, speak to that part of me. And even with this grief journey that I'm still on from my mom's transition, I write things in the same way, because you never know who's still in their grief 5, 20, 30 years later. And just your combination of words really speaks to their emotions. And that's why, to say again, your story is not for you. It's for somebody else to stop their goals, dreams, and aspirations from making the cemetery richer. Because people can hear what I have to say all day, but Mary Louise and Jessica, somebody else might resonate better from the way that you say it. Just your combination or, blended word framing speaks more to someone else than to me. So that's to keep in mind, just create it as though in a sense, like a diary. In a sense, that's what I've always done, like a public diary for me. Now, my actual diaries are hidden away, but, I do revisit them from time to time. And let me tell you, that could be a whole nother conversation, Jessica, on growth, like witnessing your own growth in a short period of time. So.
Oh yeah, we have enough opportunities, because you're going to come on the show. That's perfect. Okay, we'll add it to the list. So, Portia, I'm going to bring Marie Louise back into the spotlight. Yes, so she can ask you her questions. Marie Louise, what is your first question for Portia?
So my first question is not actually a question. I just wanted to say, I really hear you when you said my story wasn't heard. So I'd like for other people's story to be heard instead. So that's what I feel as well, what I would like. And then I had a couple of observations on vulnerability. And you were saying society doesn't encourage vulnerability. But on the other hand, I find there's also a risk of vulnerability being a niche now and being watered down, a bit like the body positivity movement, for example, that was co-opted and now doesn't really mean what it was supposed to mean originally. And I feel like also with vulnerability, it's kind of becoming trendy to say, oh, I'm being vulnerable. And at the same time, this kind of takes away some of the power it might have. So your thoughts on that? And the other thing, if you could also expand on your inner critic. So were you sure right off the bat that you had something of value to offer? Because that's what I struggle with and what my coaches keeps insisting on. And she says, get out of your own way. You do have something to offer. You can improve, of course, but you have something to offer now. And she says what you were saying, your message might be what other people need to hear and the message you didn't hear when you needed it. And so if you had any doubts, how did you overcome them? And do you still struggle from time to time with the inner critic?
Oh, yeah. Me and Rump Rose had a battle this morning before I even got onto this computer. Now, mind you, it is 6:30 in the morning here in Ohio. And the first thing I start off my day with, Mary Louise, is gratitude. When I really find myself struggling, where I'm literally in the hamster wheel of negativity, I'm like, okay, I'm going to my gratitude journal right now. So I'm going to be very vulnerable right now and read you my gratitude entry from today. Gratitude list, January 28, 2023. I am thankful for, number 1, my sleepless nights, as they are a reminder to take care of myself. Number 2, my self-awareness and the ability to identify when I feel off. Number 3, food, water, shelter, transportation, support, and my health. Number 4, my podcast conversation with Jessica at 6 a.m. I'll read you another one. There's a total of 19 that I wrote this morning.
Wow. Just this morning.
19,
Okay.
just this morning, because again, gratitude has helped me to fight those negative thoughts. And when you find yourself, Mary Louise, that inner critic really trying to tear you down, because that's the thing, when you're in a season of elevation, that inner critic is going to hammer you down like a nail in a board. That's literally how it works. And even for me right now, even though people can say that they see me as being successful, I still wrestle with that inner critic. And the first thing I do when I find my inner critic, because they love to say the same, what I call Scotch tape special rehearsed lines of, oh, nobody wants to hear you. Your story doesn't matter. Nobody's going to believe you, right? The first thing I tell my brain is to stop. Everybody stop. Next thing I do is, okay, I'm going to reframe that thought of, okay, if you think nobody wants to hear what I have to say, how come my podcast has had over 200 something episodes recorded in the last 3 years? My radio show has reached over 290 something thousand listeners around the world. So you have to reframe what that inner critic is saying. And I would also incorporate to Mary Louise gratitude. Find the gratitude in every obstacle in every situation. Be grateful for your inner critic. Me and Rump Roast, thank you, Rump Roast, for helping me to remind myself to always look for the value in myself. Thank you for reminding me that my greatness is here and your voice doesn't matter. So thank you for reminding me, being that bee in my ear, to take action, to not sit idle. So, and I also wanted to piggyback on something you said, Mary Louise, about vulnerability. I can definitely agree that vulnerability, mental health, anything that has always been highly stigmatized, I will agree it has become trendy. And to me, it has, in a sense, somewhat lost its value or weight as far as the messaging going far. But here's the cool thing. What I've noticed when I've been vulnerable, people can see it. People can see true, authentic vulnerability. They see through the trendy stuff. They do. And I'm very transparent all the time. I told Jessica, I'm very open when I tell people, yes, I go to therapy. My therapist and I are currently working on my all or nothing thought pattern. We currently are. And I'm very open about that because, number one, again, vulnerability. Number two, impact. I know that there's other people who are in this same boat. I think they call these cognitive distortions. I know there's other people who have struggled with cognitive distortions, but nobody talks about it. Number three, that passion. My passion for storytelling, my passion for educating people. I mean, that's why I went into television production, because I wanted to be able to help more people live better lives. If I could add an ounce of some new knowledge into somebody else's household that day, my day had been satisfied. My heart was full. And now I'm able to do that with being the producer on the go that I am. Whether I want to do your headshots one day, or you come and sit via Zoom with me and we do your first podcast interview after you release your book or your podcast, whatever, your business, whatever it may be, I'm able to reciprocate that. I'm able to give that. So again, I think for you, Mary Louise, start doing a gratitude journal. Be open to reframing those thoughts, that inner critic. And I'll be honest, sometimes me and my inner critic, sometimes I get beat, but at the same time, I recognize when I don't, quote unquote, win, I learn. I learned that, okay, Portia, you have to take more self-care time. I have what's called a self-care SOP in my phone, which is a medical term, standard operating procedures. And I go to my phone when I'm really having like a day, and I look through my self-care things, whether I'm doing some wood burning or I'm just writing in my journal or taking a walk outside, even though it's, chilly here in Ohio, or going upstairs and playing with my dog, Mr. Fletcher. So really incorporating self-care as a daily, I have to say it, daily routine. Not at the end of the week when you go and get your nails done. No, self-care is every day, especially if you're somebody who is more prone to mental wellness obstacles. So does that answer your question, Mary Louise?
Yeah. But I just wanted to ask you at the very beginning of your journey, because you said when your inner critic talks to you now, you're like, yes, but I have 200 podcast episodes and so forth. So you're kind of in the competence performance loop, let's say. So you already have a lot of competence, you've already performed a lot, and the things reinforce themselves. But at the very beginning, how did you just get started without any tangible results to speak of?
Oh, that's a good one. I'll be very honest with you, Mary Louise. It took me time to really learn to recognize, number one, identify that was my inner critic talking to me. Because let's be honest, until you build your self-awareness muscle, you don't know what you don't know. So when I was first starting my show, and you can find actually my first episodes still on my YouTube channel, still to this day, I keep them up. I know some people, excuse me, take that stuff down. No, I keep it up because I want you to see my journey. I want you to see my progress of where I started to where I am now. I want to say one of the pivotal moments for me, Mary Louise, when I first started my show, because I've always hosted an hour-long show that was weekly on the radio every Wednesday at 1 p.m. I started off with writing, I think, 15 to 17 questions per interview. I would say before I even took a hiatus from my show and ended it last year, when I look back at that, I chopped down my questions for an hour-long show to 5. So looking at the progress over time, this was even before I recognized the bigger impact as far as the bigger guest I was getting, to the flow of the interviews being a more organic follow-up question or, you know, whatever. For me, it was just that, recognizing that little small growth within myself to be able to really, number one, get a more concrete and more tangible interview versus, you know, you listen to some of these interviews and they're like, okay, question number 1, question number 2. No, a lot of times I would divvy from my question sheet because the conversation was so good. But I had a set structure in my mind of how the conversation would flow. So I'm like, okay, this is a radio interview. So block 1, we're doing intros. Block number 2 and 3 is the meat and potatoes, probably a mental health thing. And block number 4 is the future of where you're going. What do you see for yourself in the next 3 years, 4 years? So once I was able to create that structure in my mind, it was smooth sailing even before. And I think for your story, Mary Louise, I think number 1, you've already got the beginning, the vulnerability, number 1. Number 2, the impact is there because there's so many people who even I know that have struggled with different eating things and have overcome. So when you find that inner critic saying, oh, you know, you're not good enough, this, and this, say, you know what? You might think I'm not good enough, but I'm still here. I'm still here. If you wake up every single day and you're still breathing, you have a message. You have a purpose.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Pick my brain anytime. Jessica tell you, I am an open book, literally.
Yes, more than one book, open diary, open everything. I mean, with Portia, there are no questions that she wouldn't answer, to be honest.
Nope. People have asked me about my dating life. I take myself on solo dates. Yes, I do. I take myself out on solo dates and it's amazing. I take myself to breakfast a lot of times. I love breakfast food because it's just something about a fluffy pancake that's like a warm hug. You see how I incorporate storytelling into everything? That's how you can tell I'm passionate about it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And very competent as well. Oh my God, I love this. I love this. We have another 5 minutes before we have to go, girls. So now, Portia, I could ask you the question that I ask everybody at the end of every single interview, but you've been on the show before, so I don't know if you wanted, because you've answered this question already, but In case, Marie-Louise, you would like to ask anything else, we can take these 5 minutes for your question instead.
Not at the moment, but I might pick your brain in the future for sure.
I mean, you are connected in our Facebook group anyway. Yes. Yes, Marie-Louise. Mm-hmm.
Maybe where do we start following you, Portia?
Good question. I'm in the Facebook group, so you can find me, Portia Booker. You can actually just do a Google search literally of my name, Portia Booker, and you will find me somewhere, literally. It's crazy when I think like, oh my goodness, like you can literally Google my name and it pops up. I mean, I'm on Instagram, Portia_hugs, HUGS. I'm on Facebook, Portia Booker, LinkedIn, Portia Booker. So I'm around like a donut somewhere, 365. Like I said, my humor comes out, everything.
Really cool pictures I'm seeing. Yeah.
Yes. I get my headshots done every 3 to 6 months, which I'm due for new ones. And I do some of my own photography. I'm literally a producer on the go. I'm so passionate about storytelling that for me, there's no medium left on the table when it comes to storytelling.
Podcast is what you prefer?
Podcasting, commercials, anything visual is my thing. I mean, hence you see I got on my podcast gear today. Like Jessica was like, oh, you're like official. Like, yeah, this is what I do when I host shows. This is what I do when I'm a guest but I love podcasting. I stand behind it because there's so many rich benefits to podcasting. Number one, it helps build your confidence. Number two, it creates you a speaker reel. Number three, you can create your own book from a podcast. Number four, you can actually manifest opportunities through your podcast to be speakers on other podcasts. And I mean, and it was my second chance at life. It truly was. That's why I stand behind it so proudly, because if I didn't start Grew with Portia, I really don't know where my journey would be right now. I mean, I probably would be, not to be morbid, but 6 feet under. But truthfully, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that opportunity fell into my lap and I took it and ran with it. Because the other cool thing is my mom had been a guest on my show a few times. So I have those to re-listen to if I want to hear her voice. Like I do have on my phone a recording of the last conversation me and my mom had. So, I just stand behind it. I do. I 100% stand behind it. Podcasting has so many rich benefits. So many. Definitely. And you don't have to invest a lot. I mean, Marie-Louise, if you want to like chat with me, I'll definitely, give you the breakdown of where you can start, where you begin, everything like that. I stand behind it.
Portia, Marie-Louise should start her own podcast. You're so right.
Yeah.
So what about it, Marie-Louise?
Yeah, think it over. My DMs are open.
Yeah, thank you, Portia.
Yeah. And I produce shows. I do.
We have to have you on the show when you launch your podcast. We give you 3 months. Is it realistic, Portia? Or even just 1 month? 3 months?
Quicker than that. Than that. I can help people launch a podcast in a day. Literally, it ain't that hard.
Marie-Louise, February. You're launching your podcast in February already. Because today's the 28th of January already. So let's give it at least 3 days to reach the month of February, right, Portia?
Yeah.
That is amazing. So the decision has been officially made here on the Personal PR Show. Marie-Louise is starting her podcast in February 2023, and Portia is going to help her.
Yep. We'll get you together.
Awesome. Wow. Love it. I love when we are productive. Girls, it's time already. Unfortunately, we all have to jump to our next commitment. But it has been amazing to have you here on the show. Portia, as usual, our lovely resident guest. You have so many areas of expertise. We have to tackle them all once a month here on the Personal PR Show. And Marie-Louise, thank you so much for joining the Personal PR Show as a member of the audience and then as a co-guest as well. Thank you, girls. And thank you, everybody who's watching us from home. I will see you next week, next Monday, for the next episode of the Personal PR Show. Bye, everybody. And kisses.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you.